Bob Stefanowski's tax plan is right out of La La Land.
And caught off guard in a radio interview,
will you increase taxes?
Only as part of a real solution.
Yes or no?
Yes.
And tomorrow it starts again. Tomorrow it starts again because we're on our way. We're on our way to November. We're going to win, and we're going to go all the way and turn this state around.
So I think it's fair to say this campaign's been underestimated from the start. But we proved them wrong, and we're going to prove them wrong when we beat Ned Lamont in November.
The debate, you agreed to one on the Monday before the election. Holding to that promise?
Absolutely.
And here they are. 24 hours from now, we'll be walking into voting booths, picking a governor.
Yep.
Polls are super tight. It's anyone's game. One of these two men will be our next governor. This is the final interview for the position of CEO of Connecticut. Will it be Bob Stefanowski? Will it be Ned Lamont? We're live without a net. We'll be taking your questions over the phone. 1-877-764-2535 and on the Chasney Day Facebook page live. It's the very last gubernatorial debate brought to you by AARP. I'm Chaz, that's AJ.
Yo.
Good morning, Bob.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Good. Good morning, Ned.
Good morning, everybody.
How would you guys rate this campaign? Would you categorize it as brutal, negative, fun?
I would say it's been pretty negative, unfortunately. I guess that's the game in politics, but I'd much rather have just focused on the positives. I think that's what the state of Connecticut's looking for.
Ned, what do you think?
I think some of the TV ads get negative, but I think the people of Connecticut are very positive, and I feel a lot of positive energy as I go around the state.
Why don't you guys hug it out right now? How about a nice hug? Come on, you guys. Come on.
High five.
We want a real hug.
Enough for us.
We want a real hug. Really? The last two guys hugged.
Right.
Do we get a hug denied right now?
Maybe later. We'll see.
Oh, wow. All right, so it seems like, for the record, Bob is ready to hug. Ned says maybe later we'll see.
There you go. See. Okay. Great. So
right.
it's still open.
All right, let's do this then. Bob, can you say something nice about your opponent?
I think Ned's actually a decent guy. I think he does want to help education and healthcare. I just think our way to go about it, his is more taxes and mine is getting the economy moving. But I do think we both genuinely want to do the right thing for this state.
Ned, can you say something nice about your opponent?
I kind of like his dad. Seen him on TV, seen him at some of the debates. Good man, good family.
So that's a no. I'll say something nice about his dad.
Bob's like, I'm here right now.
That's a nice father.
That's a compliment. No, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Okay.
Thank you, Ned. I appreciate it.
All right, we're going to play Ned's favorite game here. This is called Yes or No. Then we're going to go back and we'll dig into the answers. But I just want to do a quick round of yes or no here. Will you raise taxes? Ned?
No comment.
Bob?
Absolutely not.
Will you bring tolls to Connecticut highways? Bob?
Absolutely not.
Ned?
Tractor trailers.
Will you keep any of Malloy's commissioners? Ned?
We'll see.
Bob?
Yeah, we'll look through them all. We're definitely going to replace a lot of them, I'll tell you that, but there may be some good ones there.
Would you keep the DOT commissioner? Ned?
I'd look for a change.
Bob?
Absolutely not.
Any of his administration? Bob?
We'll look at it. Again, we're going to bring...
long yes or no's?
I'm sorry. Possibly.
All right, Ned?
Possibly.
Would you legalize recreational marijuana? Ned?
Yes.
Bob?
Not right now.
Should any state employee expect to get less benefits should you win tomorrow? Bob?
Not current retirees or close to retirees. We need to look at something going forward.
Ned?
To be negotiated.
Is your opponent being completely truthful? Bob?
Not in the negative ads, no.
Ned?
Not in the negative ads, no.
All right, so that's it for yes or no. You'll have 30 seconds to answer these questions here. You guys both say you're excellent businessmen. Give me an example of how you demonstrated leadership skills in a crisis situation. Ned?
We built hundreds of telecommunication systems on budget, on time, over the course of the last 30 years, working hard, under a deadline, which I had to get done.
Give me an example of how you had a crisis in business and solved it through your leadership skills.
Well, we have to get these things done on time, on budget. So, and the fiber wasn't there in time. When the kids are coming back into the dormitories where everybody's getting a little edgy, you need a leader who's going in there, rolling up their sleeves and working with the folks who are doing the job. I loved every day I had at that company.
Bob?
I took over a $500 billion business with 5,000 employees that had lost $2 billion the year before, very much like the state of Connecticut. We replaced the management team. We cut cost. We found other ways to make money. We turned it completely around. That's what I'm going to do for the state of Connecticut. It's the perfect analogy to what we need to do here.
One of your weaknesses, Bob?
You know, I frustrate my guys. We have 30 seconds. I frustrate my guys because I take a lot of input. But then at the end of the day, I make a decision. I think it's important to have diversity of views. Sometimes it's frustrating for people that I ask more than one person, but I want input. I'm going to get input when I'm governor from both sides of the aisle. We're going to turn this thing forward.
Ned?
I think I push really hard. Sometimes get a little ahead of myself. Sometimes get ahead of some of the folks I'm trying to lead. But I keep pushing, and I got to keep doing that for the state of Connecticut as well.
All right, we're going to talk about taxes now. 90% of the people who are voting said that it's an important issue to them, the most important issue. You'll have 20 seconds on these. Also, here's a little twist that hasn't happened at the other debates. You have a bell in front of you. That's the BS bell. So if you feel that your opponent's not being completely truthful, you ring in and then you get to respond to that answer. We'll have a little discussion about it. All right, so 20 seconds. Let's go to this question first.
My name is Kenny. I'm from Milford. Probably the tax is the main thing.
Are you decided right now?
Not really. I mean, I'm independent. What are we going to do to bring the taxes down?
Let's go to Ned first. Bring taxes down, Ned.
If Bob succeeds in eliminating the income tax for the wealthiest people in our state, that will mean a lot of costs are pushed on to towns and cities, jacking up their property tax. I will reduce the property tax, which is the biggest tax paid by the middle class.
All right. Bob, you want to give your answer?
Yeah, Ned, you're talking about a $100 reduction in the property tax. Then you raised it to $300. It's going to do nothing to stimulate this economy. You admitted on Face the State that you had no idea where you're coming up with your numbers for reduced property taxes. What we need to do is get this economy moving. You are another 4 years of Dan Malloy and higher taxes.
All right, that was 20 seconds.
5 angels got the wings, by the way.
Ned, did you want to have a quick response to your BS bell? Why were you ringing in? You're saying all that was untrue?
Yeah, not true at all. It's a $300 middle-class tax cut the first year. In the second biennium, it's going to be $1,200. We say exactly how we're going to pay for it, and I'm the only guy in this room who ever took on Dan Malloy and challenged him.
All right, this is from Chris to Bob. How do you cut $10 billion out of a budget when you have a deficit?
It's an 8-year plan. We have a $40 billion budget. I can absolutely find 10% of that. That's $4 billion right off the top. We're going to cancel Dan Malloy's toll study, which is $10 million right off the top. We're going to have every department come in. We're going to start a budget with zero. We're only going to add back in what we absolutely have to have. I've already done it before. I did it at UBS.
That's 20 seconds.
We can do it for the state of Connecticut.
Ned?
At UBS, they shut down a failing division and ended up shutting down their main corporate offices, leaving nothing but pink slips. He's just come up with some cuts. That still leaves us with $12 billion hole to fill over 8 years. I worry that that's going to come right out of the hides of middle-class taxpayers in towns and cities across the state.
And that's 20 seconds. This is from Karen to Ned. Do you think your tiny tax cuts will actually help a family that's struggling?
Look, it will. I understand that the middle class is getting slammed in this state. I cannot make a lot of pie-in-the-sky promises I won't be able to keep, but I make promises I keep. And reducing the property tax, the biggest tax paid by the middle class, allows seniors to stay in their home and allows first-time home buyers a better opportunity to grow and prosper in this state.
That was 20 seconds. Bob?
What was the question?
It was, do you think Ned's tiny tax cuts will actually help a family that's struggling?
Absolutely not. A $100 tax cut, which now he's saying is $300, divided by 12. It's not even going to move the needle. We got to get this economy moving. We need to get jobs back here. We need to get tax revenues up. The best way to do that is to bring business back, bring people back, and end the insanity of Dan Malloy.
All right, thank you. This is from Corinne. She pulled this from Bob's website. This is for Bob and Ned. From your website, Bob, there's a list of things to do. And one is impose a constitutional amendment to require a supermajority to enact a tax-free or a tax to need a supermajority to enact a tax or fee increase. How serious are you about this?
Absolutely. I've taken a written pledge to no tax increases while I'm there. We would need a supermajority of the House and the Senate to propose it. I will veto any tax increases. This state has been taxed like crazy. Ned's going to continue to tax it. He said last week he's going to add a payroll tax. Enough is enough.
Ned?
Bob is just making it up.
Would you have any interest in that?
Look, I don't think having a lot of new rules and constitutional amendments is a way to do it. What you want to have is a small business guy who start up a business, go in there, be willing to shake up Hartford, hold down spending, and get this state moving again.
This is from Jason to Ned. Explain why you said yes to taxes and tolls during the yes and no game on Chaz and AJ.
Look, I'm the guy that's going to reduce the property tax, but I am going to consider some revenues. As they asked me in the yes and no question, I would look at electronic sports betting. I think that's a business that's going to be coming around the country. Here to the state, I would tax that. Recreational marijuana, why let the black market take it over? I would regulate it and tax it.
All right, let's go to tolls. Bob, any scenario where you say yes to highway tolls of any kind?
Absolutely not.
All right, let me play a follow-up to this. This is from Jamie in Naugatuck.
What's the most important issue to you?
Taxes and tolls.
Why is that?
Because I'm in the transportation industry, and a lot of the people I work for and myself, we have to travel long distances for work every day.
One question for the candidates.
Mr. Stefanowski, if you are elected, how can you guarantee that you will not impose tolls on Connecticut?
How do you guarantee that?
We're going to fix this infrastructure by bringing in the private sector. We're going to move stuff off of I-95. We're going to move freight off of I-95. We're going to fix the airports. We're going to increase the speed of the trains. The private sector has done it in other states. It can do it for the state of Connecticut. We're going to relieve that congestion on I-95 through better rail, putting stuff on water, and slowing down the traffic.
That's 20 seconds. I'm going to follow up with this because Nick from North Branford brought up privatization, which you just mentioned.
A little bit nervous about some of Bob's plans on how he's going to achieve some of these goals, though, and privatize everything. If you privatize the roads, the first thing the company's going to do is put up tolls anyway, and then you're just paying somebody else. So I'm just wondering I want to hear a little bit more about how we're going to get there.
Well, the first thing is to take the traffic off of I-95. If the public sector came in, the private sector, maybe you have an opt-in only on an optional basis to drive fast in that left lane. But optional only, there will be no tolls imposed on the taxpayers of Connecticut as long as I'm governor.
Ned, let's talk about tolls here. You said just tractor trailers, right? Is that in-state, out-of-state, all tractor trailers?
I'd like to do it just the way they're doing in Rhode Island right now. Focus on those tractor trailer trucks. Represents about $300 million. And I got to tell you, Bob put in tolls when he was at 3I. He talked about the highway going from Miami to Naples just the other day around. He said, I want to do it just like they did it there. You know how they did it there? With tolls.
All right. How many gantries would that be? You mentioned a number. The last time you were on the show, you said $100 million to $300 million revenue. How many gantries is that based on?
Work with DOT. The minimum number we need to do it on I-84, 91, and 95. That gets us up to about $300 million a year just for the tractor-trailer trucks.
So that number, is that from a study? And in that study, is there a number of gantries in that study? So they have to base the number of revenue that would be brought in on the amount of gantries and the amount of trucks and what the fee would be.
It's really about the amount of traffic. We looked at Rhode Island. We looked at how they did it there. We extrapolated that for Connecticut. The exact number of gantries, let me get back to you on that.
All right. So you don't know how many gantries. Do you know how much the fee would be?
I think we do something parallel to what we see in Rhode Island.
Linda from the Facebook page, where would they be placed?
Well, you can't do them on the borders. You have to be throughout. But most importantly, this is a way to get those tractor-trailer trucks off the main roads at busiest time. It's called congestion pricing. We have given those trucks an incentive to be on those roads at off-peak. That would open up traffic movement very early on.
So we would do exactly what Rhode Island's doing. Their plan, that would be our plan.
Exactly. I'll follow their lead.
Okay. They're in court right now.
That's right.
So do we wait until that's settled, or do we move forward?
I think it's going to be settled very soon. They've had it up and operating for 5 or 6 months.
If you're elected tomorrow, you're in January, do you move forward with tolls immediately, or do you wait until Rhode Island hashes things out?
Let's see how long it's going to take for the Rhode Island case to be cleared. I think it's going to be done within the next 3 or 4 months.
If Rhode Island loses the case, do you proceed with your toll plan or do you scrap it? Because now you can't just toll tractor trailers.
No, let's see what the ruling is. I mean, I don't know what they're going to say. And they may have some very specific items in there that'll help us tailor what we want to do.
So if you move forward with
tolls... But I'm
tolls,
focused just on the tractor-trailer trucks. That's what the people are ready to do. That's what the business community in the state of Connecticut is ready to do. You've got to be able to pay for transportation upgrades. I'm the only guy with a plan to do it.
If you move forward with tolls before Rhode Island settles, you get the tolls set up, and then Rhode Island finds that they can't toll just trucks. What then?
Again, Jazz, I'm going to wait and see what that decision is, and we're going to proceed from there. I'm not doing a $10 million tolling study. I'm not doing anything until we see what the lay of the land is. We'll know that out of Rhode Island within the next 4 months.
All right. Bob, you want a quick response? We kind of left you out. Once you said no to tolls, there wasn't really a lot to ask you about it.
Well, clearly if Ned goes through all that trouble to get, and by the way, Rhode Island is probably going to win that lawsuit, so you can't do tractor trailers. Every one of your listeners is going to go through 4 tolls on their way to work if Ned Lamont is governor. He's going to give you congestion pricing. He said it 3 months ago on this radio show. There was no qualification to it.
That's 20 seconds.
And now he's qualifying it.
All right, let's talk about pensions. Ken from Prospect.
I would just like to know, what are both candidates going to do regarding the pension system?
Ned?
I think we made a commitment to state employees and teachers. I mean to honor that commitment, but I also have got to fix the pension so it's there for the next generation. You know, when it comes to the teachers, for example, I would put the state lottery funds into that teacher pension fund, increase the assets, and stretch out the payments over a longer period of time so people have confidence the pension is there.
All right, this is Jason in Berlin.
I'm a union electrician, but not a state worker, private union. And I'd like to know what the candidate's position is on prevailing wage laws, because that's going to affect all the construction workers in Connecticut and right-to-work state.
Bob?
Right to work right now only applies to state employees, statewide employees. I'm not planning on expanding that. To Ned's point, we need to deal with this pension problem. People have dedicated into their pensions for years. We need to protect retirees. They've been counting on it. They paid into it, and we're going to fulfill it.
Knowing what you both know now, what concessions would you ask from state workers, Ned?
I wouldn't use the word concessions, but I would say I want to sit down and talk about, first and foremost, health care, how we can drive down the high cost of health care for both the state employees and for the taxpayers. I would go hard at pharma and the high cost of pharma and using our purchasing power to bring down those costs. But I can only do that if labor's at the table with me.
Bob?
I would stress on a voluntary basis, give people the option to roll it into a defined contribution plan, a 401k plan. Most people have those today. So people that want the security of a fixed payment that they've counted on for years under a defined benefit plan, you keep it. People that want to flip to a contribution plan, you do that. You give people the option.
Marco in Shelton.
So I'm more of a Democrat. I'm a teacher, but I don't like what Dan Malloy's done to the state, and I do fear that Ned Lamont's going to do the same thing, but I don't know. I feel like voting Republican would be hurting me in the end.
As a teacher?
Yeah.
Ned?
Well, Marco, I've been a teacher. I'll be a champion for the teachers, and I'm not Dan Malloy. I challenged that guy. I said he's not going to get the job done. He's not going to fix the fiscal crisis. I stood up 8 years ago, and I'm standing up today to finish the job.
Bob?
We got to protect the teachers. Again, you've been counting on that retirement. I won't do what Dan Malloy does, which is cut education funding mid-year. We got to give teachers and the school districts the ability to plan the year. We got to fund it. I'm a product of the public schools in New Haven. I value it immensely.
John in Milford.
Yeah, I'd like to know if you're going to continue the tax on Social Security. It's absolutely ridiculous.
All right. Ned?
Cut it back. It's absolutely ridiculous and driving people out of state.
Bob?
I agree. Get rid of it. People can least afford it. They're paying it. We got to get rid of it.
Knowing what you know now, what spending cuts would you make? Bob?
I drove by the Department of Transportation headquarters the other day. It's a palace. The problem is we're putting too much money into overhead. We need to do it to fix our roads and bridges. There's too many departments. There's too many agencies. We're going to take a hatchet.
Ned?
I hope you saw the Department of Transportation before last week. Look, I would hit hard on health care. 25% of the budget, billions of dollars. What I can do on Medicaid, what I can do in state employee health care, I think that would be a priority. You got to go where the money is.
Pam, anything on Facebook Live?
Yes. So Silvano wants to know, when it comes to legalizing marijuana, you think the fact that there's no way for law enforcement to tell if they're under the influence of it, is that going to be a problem for the safety of the public?
Bob?
That's exactly why I'm not ready yet, and I say yet. I'm fine with it for medicinal purposes. The results in Colorado are mixed. Safety needs to be number one. We need a test for impairment before we legalize it.
Ned?
They've been doing it in Colorado for years. They're doing it in other states. They're doing it in Massachusetts. They're doing it in California. And I don't want the black market controlling this piece of our business.
All right. Michelle in North Haven.
What are they going to do to restore the services to DDS, the Department of Developmental Services?
Ned?
Well, if you cut $10 billion out of the budget over the next 8 years, DDS, Department of Developmental Services, will be hurt. And I know how important this is to people. I was just with a lot of older parents who worried that their 40, 50-year-old disabled children won't be able to get into a group home. I'm going to make this a priority, taking care of the folks we need to.
Bob?
We're not going to do any tax cuts in the first 2 years. We're going to get this economy moving. The best way to pay more for DDS, and quite honestly, anything in this state, is to get our economy moving and get tax revenues up. We've seen last 8 years of Dan Malloy and Ned Lamont's policies doesn't work.
Patricia in Madison.
Yes, thank you. Unlike the property tax, all of us in Connecticut pay the income tax. Will you cut this tax? Why or why not?
Bob?
Absolutely. I've got an 8-year plan. It's logical. It's been up on my website for over a year now. We're going to get that tax rate down. We're going to cut the corporate rate and get jobs and people back into Connecticut. It will increase tax revenues, not decrease.
Ned?
It didn't increase the tax revenues in Kansas. That drove that state right under. It didn't increase tax revenues enough in Washington, D.C. We're looking at $1 trillion deficits. I am going to cut the property tax. That's the biggest tax paid by the middle class, and I will not raise the income tax.
Ross and Trumbull.
Is going to enforce the Connecticut helmet law. In other words, they want to switch it. They want to try to make it mandatory.
Helmet law. Ned?
I wouldn't make it mandatory. You're stupid enough to drive around with that helmet. God bless you.
Bob?
I'd leave it alone for now.
All right. Let's go to Kristen in Milford.
How will you expand programs to allow more seniors to live independently in their homes and communities?
Ned?
Number one, hold down the property tax, reduce the property tax, allow people to stay at home. B, don't allow people to slash Medicaid, have more home health care services so you can be there. And number three, make sure Connecticut's a place of amazing opportunity where young people, your children and grandchildren could be. Everybody will want to be here now.
Bob?
I think it's more choice, whether you want to stay at home or be in full-time care. My mom just went through it. My dad burned through $5,000 a week to keep my mom at home. It shouldn't be that way. Get the economy moving, more revenues, and fund it.
My name is Jennifer Giannino from Norwalk, Connecticut. Will you continue to implement the Connecticut Retirement Security Program?
Bob?
Yes, I think our retirees should have the security that they need. I think companies should have, on an optional basis, the ability to support people. But we can't burden our businesses with too many unfunded mandates. That's part of the problem here. But we need to take care of our retirees and allow them to save for retirement.
Ned?
Seniors are terrified about their health care, and they're terrified about their retirement security. I'll do everything I can working with small business and business to make it easier for them to save for their retirement.
Let's go to Morgan from New Canaan. Morgan.
Hi, would you use the rainy day fund to pay down our unfunded liabilities?
Ned. What's going on in the background there?
That sounds like fun.
It's a party.
Sounds like my house.
What is going on?
I would not use the rainy day fund to do this. I'll tell you why. We have a crisis. You need a governor who's going to look head on and deal with this, deal with the structural deficit going forward. If you just take from the rainy day fund, once again, you're kicking the can down the road, just like Jody Rell, just like John Rowland, the wrong thing to do.
All right, Bob.
I think we're fortunate to have a rainy day fund because the tax rate at the federal level was cut. We should look at some of that to fund the unfunded piece. It's an opportunity that we have to get that liability down and help us bridge to the point where we can get this economy moving.
This is from Vin to Ned. Dennis House asked you this in a debate, and he wants to get some specifics. What made Lowell Weicker the best governor in the last 50 years?
He had a crisis. He hit it head on. Look, he inherited a state where there was no income tax, enormous deficits, companies leaving, and he dealt with that head on. He brought down interest, dividends, capital gains tax, brought down the sales tax, brought down the highest corporate income tax in the country, and dealt with it head on.
And you answered Governor Rell in that same interview. Why?
I think she did a good job coming in a crisis situation after Roland, but I got to tell you, I'd say Ella Grasso now, after spending the last 4 weeks with Jim Grasso, her son, who has endorsed me. It shows how people can work across the aisle, which is what we're going to need to do to fix this state.
Malloy's biggest mistake, Ned?
Ella Grasso's daughter endorsed me, so did John Bush. Malloy's biggest mistake, not dealing with a fiscal crisis head on in year one. That's another reason I don't want to kick the can down the road by borrowing from the rainy day fund. I want to deal with it, get it behind us, take that cloud of pessimism off the state, get the state moving again.
Bob?
2 of the largest tax increases in the history of the state of Connecticut, which has driven down tax revenues, which is exactly what Ned Lamont's going to do. He's going to raise your taxes, ladies and gentlemen.
Best thing Malloy did, Bob?
Decide not to run.
I was going to say not leave sooner.
Ned?
I think after Sandy Hook, he stood tall. He put in place some serious gun safety laws. I hope Bob stands up and says we're going to continue those in the state.
Rate Malloy on a 10 scale, Ned.
4.
Bob?
What's good and what's bad? 10's good?
10's good.
-5.
Was the CT fast track a good investment, Ned?
It was 90% federal money. Remember that. Would I have done it? Probably not. We could have spent that money better elsewhere.
Bob?
Federal money is your tax money as well. We pay federal taxes. A 9-mile bus route for $600 million, $1,000 a square inch? Absolutely not.
Question for your opponent. Ned, you get to ask Bob directly. What would you like to ask him?
If this governor thing doesn't work out, are you sticking around the state of Connecticut and staying involved?
Absolutely, Ned. I was born in New Haven. I've been here my whole life. I've got 3 daughters. One of the reasons I'm running for governor is I don't want to have to get on a plane to see my grandkids, and I'm committed to the state. I've had a great family here, a great life, and that's why I'm running to fix it.
Bob, what would your question be to Ned?
Ned, you said on this show 3 months ago you were going to raise taxes and put up tolls. You were asked by Chaz 30 seconds ago whether you're going to raise taxes. You said no comment. How do you expect the voters of Connecticut to believe you when you say you're not going to raise taxes when you've gone on the record saying you're going to?
Well, it's tough when you got $4 million of outside money from Washington trashing us on this, but I've been very clear. I would do something on electronic tolling on the big tractor-trailer trucks. I would do something on sports betting, and I would reduce the property tax and tax recreational marijuana, period. No increase in the income tax. Clear since day one.
All right, so we have a tradition here. We finish off these debates with a game.
Yes, we do.
All right, Steve, you want to grab that over there?
I'm good at this game.
I present to you, gentlemen, the decider. Red versus blue.
All right, Bob, you know which one's red, right? Bob is red. Ned is blue.
What are we doing here?
All right, are you ready? And go.
Boom, 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 boom. Did I do it right?
Get it closer. Right.
Boom, boom. You're offensive.
Oh, we have a winner. All right, thank you both for coming in. You guys want to do a 60-second pitch before you leave?
Sure.
All right, Ned?
I'll tell you, I'm going to be the governor that has the courage to stand up and shake up what's going on in Hartford right now. You know I've done that my whole life. I took on people in my own party. This is my first chance. I took on Dan Malloy 8 years ago. I didn't think he was going to make the structural changes we needed to do. I'll be the person to make those changes. I'm going to hold the line on taxes and get this state growing again. I'll be the first governor in 80 years who actually started a business and created jobs. Didn't shut down businesses, started a business and created jobs. I'm going to work hand in glove with the business community to make sure that we get those jobs right here in the state of Connecticut going again. And finally, you need a governor who's a champion for the state of Connecticut, believes in the state of Connecticut, makes business want to come back, stay, grow, and invest. Our kids come back, stay, grow, and be here. That's why I'm running for governor. Because my kids and all the kids I used to teach at Harding High School in Central Connecticut State, I'm running for them.
Bob?
I'll speak directly to the tribe. You got 2 choices. You got more of the same in Ned. He's going to be Dan Malloy 2.0. He's on the record saying he's going to put up tolls. Don't believe it. It's not just going to be tractor trailers. It's going to be everybody. He's going to raise your taxes. He's going to institute a statewide auto tax. Or you can vote for change. I've been saying it for a year. No tolls ever. We're going to cut wasteful spending. We're going to give you more money in your take-home pay. We're going to create jobs. We're going to get this economy moving. We're going to use it to invest in healthcare, education. Enough is enough, ladies and gentlemen, Tribe. We've had 8 years of it. It's time for a change. It's time for an outsider. It starts Tuesday. We're going to work across the aisle to get this economy moving and get the state of Connecticut moving. I need your vote. I humbly request your vote. Thank you.
Hey, you did it in 45 seconds. How about that? All right, how about a hug now? Hug now? Come on, you guys. You got to hug. You got to hug it out.
Touchy-feely guy.
All right. Look at that. How about that? Nice.
He hugged his neck.
Yeah. There's the picture right there. We're going to see that one all day today, right?
You're hurting me.
Exactly. All right.